We are not designed to do motherhood solo. We're just not. We're meant to have the aunties and the grandparents and the cousins all in the one little camp. So I think that there's this unrealistic expectation put on a lot of these modern families that the woman has to be, everything, like have her own business and be a mom and be a wife and be everything. And we are not designed to cope with that, and it depletes the amount of presence and love and the most important things in our life. Sharing that with our families.
Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, the best place to shop for unique clothing, spiritual handcrafted jewelry, healing gemstones, and fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now, here's your host, Brett Larkin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the show. Today we have two amazing women with me, Jenna and Amber from the Mother Loving Future Show. These women have a podcast that covers self-healing, connection to spirit, deeper relationships, mindful parenting, and the passionate pursuit of everything cosmic. They are dedicated to inspiring others to look deeper at themselves and join the wave that is headed to the new world of oneness and consciousness. So Amber Lestrange and Jenna Pennrose are with me today, and we are talking all about relationships. We're going to be going over the magic of mirroring, and we'll explain what that is, the law of attraction, how to say goodbye to guilt in relationships and as a mother. And we also just use this whole episode really to explore the premise of are all our relationships really an opportunity to heal? And all of us, me, Jenna, and Amber, share hacks that have worked for us in our own relationships. So my hope is that some of these might be helpful to you too. Before we dive into today's conversation, I just want to remind you that you could show your love and support for the show by making a purchase on SavannahSpirit.com. They have the most beautiful yoga clothing, healing jewelry, and unique spiritual fair trade gifts. And if you've never made a purchase at Savannah Spirit before, they are giving free $25 free to anything in your shopping cart. So you just use this coupon code TAKE25 for $25 off anything your heart desires, and they have some really amazing items. The second way you can support the show is by leaving a rating or review here on iTunes. And if you don't know how to do that, if you expand the description below this podcast, there's a little tutorial link for you that shows you exactly how to do it. And in this period, if you screenshot your review right after you leave it and then send it, so just take a screenshot with your phone and email it to my team, info@brettlarkin.com. This is also below in the description. I will respond to that and send you a really beautiful PDF booklet full of my favorite affirmations and journaling prompts, just a little thank you gift from my heart to yours to say thanks for taking the time to leave a review, because it's a busy world and I really appreciate it. All right, now let's dive into today's conversation with Amber and Jenna. Jenna, Amber, I'm so excited you're here and to connect with you on the show.
We are so excited to be here, Brett. Thank you for having us.
We're excited.
So we're going to talk about relationships as an opportunity to heal, and I'm hoping you guys are going to feel comfortable to share some maybe personal stories here as well. I think relationships with people that we don't necessarily choose to have relationships with, like our family, for example, can sometimes be the most challenging. What have you guys seen in your own lives and in your community?
Oh my gosh.
So much.
So much. This is kind of the fundamental theory that we play with all day, every day, and that's at the base of our podcast and our mission, the Mother Loving Future. We basically believe that your higher self / like universal wisdom, if you want to call it, whoever you feel like your God is orchestrating your life in a way where you call in other humans as an opportunity to heal.
And you might have soul contracts with like those people in your family that you didn't choose, but you might have actually chosen them before you came into your body.
Yeah, psych. So there are some really practical tools to use to start exercising this theory of ours of using relationships to heal. So a couple of them are the magic of mirroring. Do you know about the magic of mirroring, Brett?
Oh, I think I might know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure. So walk me through it.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, it's super simple. It's just basically a theory that it leads you to the idea that other people in your life are mirroring back to you what you need to grow within yourself or what you need to heal within yourself. So for example, the things that are really triggering me with my husband may just be the thing that I need to cultivate more of. And that's why it's irking me, because I can sense that it's about me. It's not about him. And it's so easy to deflect and blame and distract ourselves with making it about the other person. But really, it's an opportunity to turn inward and say, maybe I need to be more compassionate.
Why is this triggering?
Yeah. And where can I take responsibility? So that's just one little tool called the magic of mirroring. And it can be in a positive, you can be mirrored positive attributes of yourself and negative attributes of yourself. So once you get the theory, it's really fun to play with. You'll see it in your family, your friends, your relationships.
It's kind of based on the law of attraction, which says that we attract into our lives that which we are. So if we are vibrating and any pieces in us which are vibrating at a place where we need to heal them, they're going to show up in our external world, but it's really a reflection of us.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of this idea of karma and dharma in yoga. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the general idea is that the obstacles that are being put in front of you, or the mother that you have, that's the one you chose, right? That's the one that's here on this plane of consciousness to evolve your soul, basically, to evolve you to sort of the next level. So all those things that bother us about someone, well, actually they're here as teachers to us. It's like the Yoga Sutra teaches as well. The Yoga Sutra is everything is a friendly teacher when you have this kind of viewpoint. I think what can be challenging is like, how do we keep that viewpoint on when someone's driving us crazy or we're just exhausted? So I know you mentioned the mirroring. I'm curious what other practical tips you guys have for folks who kind of get this concept, because I think it's such a powerful one, but how do we actually practice it in our day-to-day?
Yeah, great question. Well, Jenna's do you have something to say?
Well, I was going to just say, I know this is sort of a kindergarten like idea, but just counting till 5 or counting to 10 before you react if you do feel triggered, giving yourself extra space, and maybe the ritual of counting could be good because it forces you to have that space in which you really are mindful and you think about how this trigger is a reflection of you. And so maybe that becomes your practice where you count down, and in that counting, you think, how is this a reflection of me? Especially if you are prone to just blaming the other or trying to wiggle out of responsibility.
Yeah, on the trigger note, I think that changing your perspective. Once we change our perspective on something, it changes our reaction to something, which changes what we manifest in the world. So I think that changing perspectives is obviously a mind game, and we just have to take responsibility for firstly understanding a new perspective and constantly redirecting thoughts to that new perspective so much until it becomes the new go-to thought. So I'm sure you know all about that with meditation and yoga, mantras, positive affirmations. So for me in my personal life, once I understood this concept that we work with, which is relationships are an opportunity to heal and breakdowns are opportunities for breakthroughs, I started changing my perspective from breakdowns being really bad and something that translated this relationship isn't meant to be, or it's not working, or this person isn't right for me. As soon as I changed my perspective to breakdowns are opportunities for breakthroughs, and I am the master of my experience, and I called this in for opportunity to evolve. As soon as I got that, I would apply that filter over breakdowns. And I'm a serious Leo, so I'm quite emotional and heated. And in the moment, I find it very hard to move to my practical mind. I'm very dominated by my emotions. So it usually takes me, once I'm out of the heat of the moment, to get some space. And then I always leave time and space for myself to reflect and bring back in that calm space the concept of what am I trying to wake myself up to here? What is truly triggering me? What within me is creating this? Where is the lesson? Where is the opportunity to heal what is being triggered? And that automatically brings the game of blame and distraction. It puts that off track and turns it inward, which I think is the most empowering place to be. Because that way, that's conscious relationship, right? Where we're both using each other to heal and to evolve and to to come closer to love. So it's not easy in the moment, but I think that if you're in practice on a daily note and start to use this concept in less charged relationships, like friendships, it's easier to get the hang of. And then when the big breakdowns come in, like in love relationships, you may go to that perspective sooner than you usually would.
Mm-hmm. And just in observing Amber, because she is a passionate Leo, like I would say it takes a lot of presence of mind that I've observed in you to be able, it's always within a couple hours that you kind of calm down from the initial fire. And then that's the first thing you think about is like, how can I use this as an opportunity to heal?
And the only reason I've come to that place within my practice of mindfulness is a daily studying of myself and applying this concept over my entire life. I don't compartmentalize it to my relationships. I look at it in my friendships, as I said, my family, my interactions with people in the world. Like I may be in a cafe and someone walks past me and I hear a snippet of their conversation that triggers me. And everything is an opportunity to take responsibility for how I'm showing up in the world. So it's just keeping that as your vehicle as you move through life, keeping that with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think of it as almost like you need to just be wearing those sunglasses that see the world in that way all the time. And this is one reason I think that a personal yoga practice and a meditation practice really isn't a luxury. I mean, that's something I'm trying to talk about more and more these days, because I think in the past, and especially in my teaching and my work, I've been very much, I'm like, oh, well, it's okay. Just do the best you can. Just do as much as you can. Okay, that still holds true. But in order to really make big change and to have an awareness of this on any kind of ongoing basis, I just think a daily practice. And if you can, a multiple a day practice, right? It doesn't need to be a 60-minute yoga class, but, a 3-minute forward fold at lunch, or a little shavasana in the afternoon if you can. Anything to just take a break, because ultimately, like listening to both of you, I was like, this all comes back to self-care, right? Like if we can take care of ourselves, right, we can then have the presence of mind to bring in this perspective to our relationships with our kids and our spouse and our parents and everything. And it's just makes life flow so effortlessly, so beautifully. But coming back to like the other conversation that I had with you guys about the matrix, it's like self-care just isn't considered a priority in our society today. Like if anything, we're just expected to be super women, or, for the men listening too, super men, and, just be able to like do our potential day job and take care of our families and constantly be on social media and our phones. And, we're responding to emails. Yeah, like it's crazy. Like we're trying to get a lawyer right now to help with a sale that we're doing. And like these lawyers were responding to me like over a holiday weekend. And part of me was like, oh, this is great that they got back to me so fast. Cause like I'm a busy mom like you guys, right? So I do some of my like housekeeping tasks on the weekend. But another part of me was like crying inside. I was like, why don't they just respond to me on Tuesday after the holiday weekend? Like I don't expect.
Yeah, they're probably buying into the matrix and like living off fear that, their identity is attached to, how much they do and accomplish.
And I think so many of us feel that way, right? Because, so anyway, to ask you guys an actual question, I'm wondering, how do you fit self-care in? And what advice do you have for listeners about being able to keep these kind of like sunglasses, this viewpoint that you're mentioning alive all the time? Do you guys each have a daily committed practice? And what does it look like? Or does it sort of vary?
Yeah, this is a really, really big one, because we do have a philosophy that self-love attracts and self-care attracts everything that you're wanting to manifest in the world, and self-hate and depletion repels that. And so we really feel...
And we had to be conscious about getting self-care practices in order. At least I did.
Yeah, we've had some major breakthroughs in that area because we're both relatively new mums. I have a 4-year-old and Jenna has a 4.5-year-old and 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. And we created our podcast, The Mother Loving Future, relatively early. I think Valentine was 1.
No, I think he was
2. Anyway, when we created our podcast, we threw ourselves into it as you do creating anything from your heart. You just go, balls to the wall, excuse my French. And we had to learn that we were not used to anyone functioning on little sleep, totally stressed out. Our life was completely out of balance, which propelled us into understanding that balance is absolutely the key to a happy, successful life. And you have to, as a mom, you just got to schedule it in and prioritize, your health. Because if, the mom's the son of the family, and if mom's not happy, then the rest of the household will feel it.
And to me, it was hard because I felt a lot of guilt around self-care. Like I felt like when the time and energy that I would be putting into myself, going to yoga or doing something for myself, that I felt guilty that I wasn't using that time to take care of my kids or to do something for my family or to do work. Like I would feel guilty about that. So it actually took a breakdown at the end of last year where I got really sick because I had not been taking care of myself, for me to like have a revolution of the mind where I had to switch my perspective to realize that the highest priority was balance, that nothing could take care of my family better than me being strong and me being well balanced. And I still have guilt around that, but I just now have a mantra of just rejecting guilt. Like if guilt comes in, I reject that categorically, and I follow my schedule of self-care, which includes yoga and meditation in the mornings.
We actually did a podcast called Self-Care Crisis, right?
About my whole self-care crisis.
Yeah, which breaks down this exact topic on a very personal basis. So that's always a good one if anyone's suffering from any type of major imbalance in their life.
But it's kind of like, in a way, hypnobirthing. Like if you want to have a hypno baby, you have to really practice the hypno meditations for like every day going up to the actual birth. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to be able to have those glasses on of the higher perspective, it's important that you wear those glasses every day, that you are using those glasses in times when it's not a crisis, because then you're going to get used to wearing them. They're going to be your normal headgear,
And I also think making it fun is really important.
Amber's good. That's why I'm friends with her.
I'm really good at this. Basically, I like to look at life as a game. And I like to look at things like this as a really fun challenge. And once I got my head around the theories that we're talking about, I thought it was really fun to see where I could spot them and to see how much I could take responsibility for and to see how much I could bust through to the next level of, evolution, I guess. So if you take it lightly and you enjoy where you're trying to achieve balance, like pick something that you really love doing, like yoga or rollerblading. Jenna rollerblades to yoga, perfect double whammy. Just like really, once again, have a resonance test and use your intuition to choose activities that will create balance, but that lights you up, because then it's not a chore and it's just easier to commit to and take on and sustain.
Well, I don't know if this is what you meant, Amber, but when you said about the game, I was almost thinking, I know so many of us, myself included, right? You feel so overwhelmed when you're trying to schedule everything in. But even looking at that scheduling process as a game, as opposed to this, terrible chore that's so overwhelming and draining, and shifting your perspective on that and being like, how can we be super fun and creative to fit, my self-care in and the pediatrician appointment here and, making sure we get time in with the grandparents and all that. All of a sudden it becomes this creative endeavor instead of something that feels draining.
Overwhelming. Definitely.
Great example.
And another really important thing is asking for help. is simply, we are not designed to do motherhood solo. We're just not. We're meant to have the aunties and the grandparents and the cousins all in the one little camp. So I think that there's this unrealistic expectation put on a lot of these modern families that the woman has to be, everything, like have her own business and be a mom and be a wife and be everything. And we are not designed to cope with that, and it depletes the amount of presence and love and the most important things in our life. Sharing that with our family. So
totally, those expectations upon women is part of the matrix. It's part of the patriarchal domination. It's part of the old system that needs to fall.
So asking for help from your family, from your friends, from your partner, calling in the troops, because we cannot do it alone. We're not meant to.
Oh, I love that tip. And it makes me think of, I know I'm going to talk on your guys' show about the chakra, but it makes me think of the throat chakra, because I think a lot of us, and I think in particularly women, have trouble doing that asking, right? We feel like we should just be able to handle all of it. And I noticed it myself, even in the early weeks, early days of my son's life, that I almost didn't feel comfortable asking very directly my husband or my mother-in-law and different people to do specific things. And it was so absurd. I almost noticed the absurdity of it in that postnatal moment. And I think for just many of us, it can be a challenge to just be direct and ask. But when you do that, my experience, it's always been so positive. And it's just like strengthening a muscle. It's like the more you do that, just standing in your power, asking, and not like asking and then saying, but if you can, it's okay to do it, like ask and then silence, right? And that's been a game changer for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't you find that the response was overwhelmingly open and supportive? I bet your husband and your family just were waiting for you to ask them to help. They love it. It's such a gift to request that someone be of service for you. People love it.
I love it. And I want to come back to something that I think Jenna had mentioned earlier, which was about guilt. Because I think, parents or not, we all feel guilt about so many things, right? Not making it.
It comes out and the guilt comes in.
Yeah, exactly. So you said something where you said you just reject guilt as a thought. And that's something that I actually do as well. And I'm wondering if you want to share for listeners how you did that and what your sort of process looks like. And I'm happy to share mine as well after.
Totally. So my process, because it was very overwhelming for me, the feelings of guilt, and I could not separate myself from it. So where the turning point came for me was actually seeing that negative thought form as an entity outside of myself. Because for me, the danger was that in taking that on as my own personal view. So I would have a negative thought, guilty thought form, and then I would take that thought as, this is what I really feel. This is what I really think. And then that would be my world and my emotion. But what I started to do was whenever a guilt-based negative thought form would come into me, I kind of looked at it instead as a foreign invader. So I would say, this is not my thought form. This is not the thought form that I choose to live in the vibration of. So I will reject you as a foreign invader.
Amber, thank you for sharing that. And that's something that I did too. I just think I want to drop that thought, right? The minute a guilty thought comes in, I almost shiver, like I'm trying to shake something off of my body. And I'm like, nope, I drop that thought. I don't let it in. That's not something I'm doing anymore. And one thing I wanted to kind of add is that a huge piece for me in feeling capable and powerful enough to do that was sitting in self-love and really acknowledging that I'm a good person. Because I think when we feel guilt, it's like, oh, I'm a bad person. I'm not good enough because I'm not doing X, Y, Z. I'm not, and it's like the way I was able to counteract that, if this is helpful for someone listening, is that I really sat down with myself and I said, do I really believe that I am not a good person? Like, I really believe that I am a good person. And I think if I asked, my friends and my family, they would agree. This is just a fact. Like, I know it in my bones. I'm doing my best. I'm a good person, right? I don't need to prove anything about that. And once I got really comfortable with that, all of a sudden when the guilt thoughts would start attacking me and trying to say, because I think that's what sort of underlines guilt that sometimes people miss, is it's like this chopping away at like, well, you're a good person if you do XYZ. If you like, are with your kids 24/7 and running your business and,
Which you can't be with your kids 24/7 and run a business. You know what I mean? So it's like,
right.
Not even possible.
So once I really got comfortable with the truth of accepting myself, and acknowledging, that it's not about, I'm a good person regardless, right, of all the other stuff going on. I don't know. For me, that helped kind of spur a huge shift. And I think all my relationships have improved.
Totally. That's a great point.
So guys, is there anything else you want to share with us about healing relationships, or anything you think we missed that you want to make sure to communicate to the listeners before we end? This has been such a fun conversation.
Yes, I have one really fun and juicy kind of idea that Jenna and I play with a lot. We're really into the idea of archetypes. Are you familiar with how to recognize archetypes in your relationships?
A little bit, but I'd love you to walk us through it.
Okay, Jenna's really savvy on the whole archetype situation.
Well, it's just that there are these universal archetypes that are being played out, and relationships between archetypes which are being played out, such as the abuser and the abused is like an archetype, for example. And
so for example, you could be when you're with that person, they could activate the parallel archetype within you. Sorry, the opposite archetype within you.
Especially if you had some type of archetypical training when you were a child or in your youth, where you might fall under a category unconsciously. You might be attracting that type of relationship into your life unconsciously, and recognizing the archetypes within that relationship can help you break.
Yeah, we have, for example, you're familiar, if you grew up with a father who's abusive in some way, whether it be they abandoned you, you may be subconsciously drawn to that archetype in a partner, which makes you feel safe, and at the same time triggers the archetype within you of the victim, because that's where you feel kind of safe and comfortable in. So that's kind of the theory of archetypes. We did this article, which has been, it blows our mind how every week this article is just the number one hit on our website. It's called Analyzing Relationships and Their Potential to Heal, Soulmate, Twin Flame, and Life Partner. So it's exploring those archetypes of the soulmate, the twin flame, and the life partner, and the theory of generally most people come across all of these, if not all of them, then at least one or two of them. And when you understand what that archetype represents, it's easier to navigate your way through the ups and downs of that relationship and use it as a tool for your own evolution to heal and to get to the next level where you can call in your life partner. So we did a podcast on it as well called Soulmate, Twin Flame, Life Partner. And that explores that concept of recognizing where to place monumental relationships in your life. Are they there to activate you? I mean, they're all there to activate you, but is it something that you should look at as your life partner, or is it really just a soulmate who's passing through and activating you to get ready for your life partner? So I don't know. I just feel like understanding archetypes is another way to understand relationships better and your place in them and how you can take responsibility.
And so empowered to heal.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that. And I'll make sure to link up that article in the description of this podcast. And it kind of brings us full circle. You talking about the soulmate that activates you for your life partner later, because that even made me think a little bit about the magic mirroring that we started this conversation with, because I know one thing that was really helpful for me when ending a love relationship that I knew was not my ideal partner, but was actually taking the qualities of that person that I really loved and kind of trying to embody them myself. And I know for me that was really, really helpful. So if anyone's listening and going through a breakup right now, know that you can carry on, the loves of your past in your own personality, I think, in a really healthy and beautiful way.
Take all the good bits, leave the bad bits.
Yes, exactly.
That's really smart.
So Amber and Jenna, it was so amazing to connect with you. I'm really lucky because we get to chat again on Thursday and we're talking about the Matrix, which we alluded to a couple times in this episode. So listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, absolutely tune in on Thursday. We kind of have a firecracker episode. It's really, really fun. And that's it. I'm wishing you guys a beautiful day full of yoga, meditation, and of course, make time for that self-care. Drop the guilty thoughts. I'm sending you so much love from my heart to yours. Namaste.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaeast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.